In the beginning, JavaScript was small. It wasn't used for much. But by now, it's become big. It's used for many things. Unfortunately, it's not equally good at all of those things. So you have to ask the question, how can we make it more capable? Unfortunately, as a web language, it is difficult to evolve. Whenever you introduce a new version, it's a forced upgrade in the browser because you still want to run all existing applications. And when it comes to applications, then you can use the new version exclusively because you still want to run on all existing browsers. ECMAScript.next is the attempt to evolve ECMAScript as it currently exists. ECMAScript.next is a code name because there's been a precedent of version numbers changing, so they want to make sure that they don't call it ECMAScript 6 yet, and then at the last minute the version number changes, so they're being cautious. Two of its goals are to fix pitfalls and to add new features. And those goals are always a bit in conflict with two requirements. And one is to not break existing code and to preserve the nature. You don't want to create a radically different language. And now, because to talk about everything that's new would be beyond the scope of this keynote, let's focus on how ECMAScript.next fixes pitfalls. And this is a laundry list of the most important JavaScript pitfalls. ECMAScript.next helps with many of them, but sometimes even ECMAScript 5 helps with them. And where it does so, there will be this little marker, ES5. So, first pitfall, or quirk, you could say. You have truthy and falsy values, so JavaScript is very forgiving when it comes to Booleans. And you have both undefined and null. The solution for that quirk is you have to learn and live with it. There's not much you can do about that. It's just in the language. Quirk number 2. The double equals is weird, and there is a whole corpus out there on stuff that is strange, but you can make your life easy by just forget about double equals and always use triple equals, really always. Third pitfall, you have function scope variables. Every variable that you declare via var exists in the complete function. ECMAScript.next will introduce let, a new way to declare variables. And there you have the advantage that if you are inside the block or the then block of an if statement, temp can stay local to that block. It will only live in that block if you use let. So that is very, very handy. And you can forget all of these rules to put all your variables on top. That is in many style guides, and it's just everything stays block local. Fourth, you often, if you create a function, especially inside a loop, you have inadvertent sharing. And if we look at this code here, there is a loop that creates 10 functions. And all of these functions share the loop variable. So when you invoke one of these, or like no matter what function you invoke afterwards, it's always going to return 10, which is the final value of the loop variable. So the solution here is to create a fresh copy of I for each iteration. And actually, array prototype for each already does that for you automatically. Well, due to its nature. Additionally, you have a new, quite nifty loop in ECMAScript.next that's called for_of that does the same thing, or probably will do the same thing. it's already prototyped in Firefox 13, so you can already try it out, and it does many more things. Fifth, subtyping is difficult. When it comes to just a single type, implementing a single type via a constructor function, things are relatively easy. But then if you want to create a subconstructor, if you want to implement a subtype, then you have problems, and it's a lot more tricky, a lot more boilerplate. ECMAScript.next will probably have class declarations. It's currently being hotly debated. And with those, you get code such as the following. It's an employee that extends a person. The thing is, it looks very much like a class of class-based languages, but it's really just syntactic sugar for a constructor function. So under the hood, it's just translated to a constructor function. And here, for example, here you have what you normally would put into the constructor function, and here you have methods that normally go into the prototype. And under the hood, all that happens. And then you have super references and other nice stuff. Sixth, this in non-method functions is a frequent pain point that trips up even experienced developers. So what you do, or what you have here, is this function here is a non-method function. Whenever you refer to this, you actually want to refer to the this of print friends. You want to refer to object. But the problem is that each function brings its own this. So the this of print friends will be shadowed by the this of this argument here. And so what you do is, this is a common workaround. There are others. You assign that, or you assign this to that or self, and then you use it down there just to get the shadowing out of the way. ECMAScript.next will have arrow functions, and here, those arrow functions, they don't bring their own this. And then I want to refer to name. Here, I just use this.name, and and this is an important pitfall that just won't exist anymore. And this is going to be really cool. Seventh, if you extract a method, you can't use this anymore because you've broken the connection between the method and the containing object. Here's an example. You have the object counter. You're calling set timeout down here. You want to provide a callback, and the callback should be counter.inc. But you can't just use it like this. You have to make sure that too many this is it's like both in JavaScript and in English. So what you have to do is you have to use bind so that you can use this up here so that you don't break the connection between the method inc and counter. Then there's the pitfall of accidental globals, and there are two ways to accidentally create globals in JavaScript. Number one is assigning to an undeclared variable. And if you do that here, JavaScript automatically creates a global variable for you. The solution already exists. You can use strict mode, and it will throw an error that's very nifty. The next way of accidentally creating globals is via this. Whenever you invoke a constructor without new, in current non-strict ECMAScript, this points to the global object, and you're creating global variables. As you can see here, you've assigned to x, and it just afterwards, it exists as a global variable. The solution is to use, again, strict mode. What strict mode does for all functions is the value of this is then undefined if you call a non-method function, and then you automatically get an error because undefined just doesn't have a property x, and you can't add new properties to undefined, and you'll immediately get an error. Next, parameter handling is complicated. You check for undefined. You work with arguments, and what ECMAScript.next does for you is you have parameter default values, and these will be used whenever you omit a parameter. You also have rest parameters, and there you get all the remaining arguments are then assigned to this variable as an array. You have the pitfall of array-like objects. Some objects look like arrays but really aren't. For example, they don't have all of these nifty array methods. The main culprit is arguments like in the core language. That will go away due to the nicer parameter handling. But the DOM quirks still remain. There are things that are being done to solve that, but those remain. For-in is weird. You probably shouldn't use it. When it iterates over objects, it includes all property names, including enumerable inherited ones. If you iterate over arrays, you iterate over the indices of the array, kind of, because in a fragile manner. You don't iterate over the elements as you would expect. So there are two solutions. In current ECMAScript 5, you can use object keys and array prototype for each. Or you can use, again, the new for-of loop. That does many cool things, as I already said. So to conclude, evolving a web language is hard, so you have to have compassion with TC39 and the committee working on ECMAScript.next. And ECMAScript.next will fix many JavaScript quirks. It's going to be a very nice language. Thank you.